Hello, and I'm back, and I'm going to be doing some individual captain skill builds for individual boats in detail and how they can be chosen for a specific role or playstyle that you may enjoy. The new captain skills for 0.6.0 are fantastic because before you could only really choose one plus a little bit of deviation, different builds for each ship. It was pretty fixed. However, the new captain skills really allow you to customize your role in the game or your playstyle. So I'm going to be starting with the Khabarovsk. This is my absolute favourite boat in the game. It is an amazing boat. Can't get enough of it. Anyway, so yeah. We're going to do the basic things you'll need, and then we'll go into the individual build types. Now, the first build I'm going to be doing is going to be a pure gunboat. This is not like a specific role for a gunboat. It's going to be absolute pure gunboat. So this is a pure gunboat build. I will leave the link, and I'll leave so you can access this build in my YouTube video. Anyways, the first one we should be going for. It is a tough choice. I do prefer priority target. However, my modules do get taken out quite often. I think the module incapacitation rate has gone up in the last update, which is very frustrating. I do like this skill a lot, but I'm going to recommend take preventative maintenance. I don't think anyone else is recommending priority target, so I'm kind of going with the flow here, even though personally I've chosen that one. But anyway, so yeah, preventative maintenance and then last stand. These are basically the default things you must always choose on DDs. Moving on from there, this is where you can start customizing your boat to be a specific gunboat for this build. So we'll be choosing BFT and AFT. This increases your rate of fire and your range, especially in the Khabarovsk, since the nerf a few patches ago means that your range is now not amazing. Moving on from there, we'll be picking Adrenaline Rush. This is an amazing skill. I highly recommend it for anything that uses its guns a lot, and it's not just guns actually. It's all types of armaments. Torpedo boats, secondary builds would use this as well. Practically speaking, if other than the big BBs, I would recommend Adrenaline Rush for everything, especially if you are using a particular, if your armament is one of your main priorities. So yeah, go for that. Now this is where we start to really hone in on our guns. We'll pick Demolition Expert to get more fires. That is very, very powerful. And here we can have a choice. You can pick HEAP, which could be a good choice, especially if you want to penetrate bigger boats and get more HE damage. So this would be a good choice if you really, really want to go all out guns. This is a good choice. However, my choice would be Survivability Expert. Gives you a bit of more of a, a utility feel, and makes you last a bit longer. You'll be adding 3,500 HP to your boat, which is very useful because when you're shooting your guns, you're always detected, and essentially people will always be firing at you. If you're, it's more or less impossible to shoot other boats without being detected. So I'm going to be going for Survivability Expert. Now this does leave me with one skill point left, and of course I'll be picking Priority Target. Very useful. This is an all-out gunboat build, with possibly the exception you can choose inertia fuse for HE shells. This would actually kind of increase your your gunboatness about it, but I believe living longer means you can do more damage with your guns. So ideally I pick both, but I can't. So anyway, so that's my gunboat build, and I'm going to be moving on to a slightly more anti-destroyer build. This still centers around your guns, but you're really thinking about how you can use your guns to tackle a certain ship type, and the Khabarovsk is a deadly destroyer killer. So the first one we're going to be choosing, preventative maintenance. I would definitely, if you're going for an anti-destroyer build, I would definitely recommend this over priority target, because priority target is when you're more kind of doing long range, out in the open style play. This one here, who's shooting at you. You're usually knife fighting one-on-one, and I found that a lot of destroyer shells take out your armaments quite easily. Definitely recommend this. And then obviously last stand. Now, if we're going to be taking out destroyers, we know we're going to have to pick RPF. But moving towards that, I probably still recommend BFT, because you're going to want to get more shells into your enemies as fast as you can. And then beyond that, we'll be looking for radio position finding. This means we can find the closest boat, and the closest boat is often a destroyer, especially if you know there's one lurking on an island. You want to be able to get the jump on it. So I would recommend RPF for killing destroyers in the Khabarovsk. Now, with our 9 points left, we're going to be wanting to pick other skills that would hurt destroyers as much as we can. I would recommend Survivability Expert. You want to have that, especially if you're going against American destroyers. They have more guns they can shoot at you. Well, they have faster firing guns, and this extra health will mean that they'll have to shoot a lot more shells at you in order to kill you. Recommend that if you're going anti-destroyer. And then you have a choice here. You can either go for Concealment Expert, which can give you that extra bit of concealment, so you can surprise them at a closer range, or you can go for HEAP to do more damage to them. You can take out their armaments quicker, especially if you're going against USN or Japanese destroyers taking out the torpedoes. Now I think overall inertia fuse for HE is a better choice if you're going anti-destroyer, because when a couple of days ago, I had a game where they took out all of my armaments on my Khabarovsk, which is why I now sort of recommend this one here, even though I still prefer Project Target. Yeah, so this one might be good for taking out destroyers, because it means you can get more penetration damage into the enemy destroyers. Now, one thing you must note with inertia fuse for HE is that it is a mathematical equation essentially. So what it is your the amount of armor you can penetrate is your shell size divided by 6. From memory, I think the Russian captains have 139mm armor, so you divide that by 6, which is something. You just work that out. 23mm armor, so plus 30% to that. I might be wrong by the way. I think it's 23. Yeah, it's definitely 23 plus 30% on that, which is plus 7. So you'll be able to penetrate 28mm armor, and I think this is strong enough to penetrate all turrets, especially on the USN boats. So this could be quite useful. Now we have 2 points, and I would be recommending either Adrenaline Rush, because you can get more bullets out, shells out, or Turret Traverse, which would be very interesting, because obviously DDs move very quickly, and you want to be able to shoot them, especially if you're knife fighting. However, I do think on this case you should be picking Adrenaline Rush. This is a pretty good skill. They'll be damaging you the whole time because you're knife fighting, and your shells will be getting faster and faster and faster. So this is a great destroyer attacking build. Okay, now next we will be doing a more kind of utility or team play build. This is if you're playing your Khabarovsk and you're playing in a team and you want to be useful for your team. So again, first thing you choose are these two here, as always. And moving on from that, we will be wanting to provide smoke, and we'll be wanting to cap faster. So we should probably pick Superintendent. This means you have an extra smoke, so you can smoke up your battleships. Russian smoke is okay. It's not as good as USN, but it's not as terrible as the German destroyers or the Japanese destroyers. This also means you have one extra consumable for speed booster, which is again very useful. Moving on from that, if you want to, be helping out your team, you're going to be wanting to either have better range, so you can. One good thing about the Khabarovsk is you are like a harassing ship. Now I've harassed many like Yamatos where I've just been shooting my 139mm 139mm was it 139? I think I'm sure it's 139 millimeter little HE shells at Yamatos, and they go, oh no, someone is shooting me their little shells at me, I must turn around and go the other way because it's too scary, because that's what BB players are like. So more range means you can harass better, so that's one of the skills that you want to be doing in a Khabarovsk. Now we have 9 points left, and I would be recommending to pick, for example, Smoke Green Expert. I did notice the increase in smoke radius. I would say this could be buffed a little bit further, maybe up to 25%. I think 30% might be a bit too much, but yeah, definitely a good skill to pick if you're trying to help your team. I would highly recommend that. Now, 7 points left. We'll be looking to try and get as much information for our team as possible, so therefore RPF would be a good skill. Although now it's called radio location. I hope no one's watching this video in like a year's time thinking, what the hell's RPF? Radio location. Yep, there we go. Which is then you'll be able to tell your team where an enemy DD may be hiding. You can double click on the map, or you can just tell them if you're on TeamSpeak or something like that. Yep, so that's a pretty good skill to go for. Moving on from there, we have a couple of choices. Not always obvious choices, so you've been wanting to stay alive pretty long, so you can use Survivability Expert. I think this is probably the best choice if you are playing a team build for the Khabarovsk. So this way here, we're not concentrating on our guns, we're concentrating on providing as much information and help to our allies in our team. This is if you do prefer playing as a team player, which I don't think anyone does. This is probably the best build you can go for. Now, we're going to be thinking about how we can attack cruisers. I would say the Khabarovsk is, for a DD, is very, very anti-cruiser. Literally just half an hour ago, I was in a game, and a broadside Baltimore came round the side of the island, and I just threw AP into him like there was no tomorrow. And afterwards he sunk. He had about 3/4 HP. And I took basically all of that, but someone stole the kill from me, as per usual. And afterwards, he complained didn't really complain. He kind of complimented me in the chat, saying, "Wow, that Khabarovsk fires AP like no tomorrow." I was like, "Yep, it does a whole lot of damage." And he was like, "I'm going to grind down that one there just to get that Khabarovsk, so I can shoot AP into other cruisers." So yeah, the Khabarovsk is a pretty decent anti-cruiser DD. Now, let's build a build for that. Again, quite close between these two. However, if the cruiser is shooting HE into you, they have quite big guns, your modules probably will get incapacitated, so you'll be wanting to pick preventative maintenance. And again, of course, last stand. Now, if we are going anti-cruiser, we're going to have to think about the balance between our guns and torpedoes, because torpedoes are actually pretty decent in the Khabarovsk. You have 10 kilometer range, which is again not bad at all, and you have 2 sets of 5, which is pretty good. We're also going to think about, do we need, what sort of damage we'll be doing to them? Will it be fire, will it be guns, or will it be torpedoes? I believe that although fire is useful, fire is not the big advantage you'll be needing in order to take down a cruiser. So it's a toss-up between torpedoes or guns. And this is the Khabarovsk, so really, strictly speaking, you'll be wanting to improve your guns the most. One thing we definitely won't be needing is Superintendent, because many cruisers at high tier have hydro and radar, and if you're stuck in smoke in the middle of an open and they put their radar or hydro up, you're going to die, so don't even think about that. And on the 4th row, we'll be choosing, almost guaranteed, I would say, a nice fuse for HE. This means you'll be able to penetrate bow armors and stern armors of cruisers, especially if they are facing forwards on. This means that you have an extra 30% to your penetration of the armor, which again is very useful. You'll be able to do more damage when they're angled. Highly recommend it if you're going to be wanting to target cruisers specifically. Now, moving on from there, we're going to be thinking about how we can increase the amount of damage we can do to cruisers. I would say Adrenaline Rush. This increases the reload for all armaments, as you know, as I said before. This means torpedoes are included with that. So therefore, this skill comes an absolute must, especially if the cruisers are shooting back at you. Moving on from there, we'll probably want to choose Survivability Expert, because you want to be able to live a bit longer so you can just about take that last damage out before you die. Also, if you've got more HP, that means you'll be able to use this skill more. I mean, I know this means that you have to take more damage in order for the reload to get faster. However, when you are, let's say, 50% HP, you will have, 1,250 more HP, or 1,750, sorry, 1,750 HP more than you would at 50% HP without this skill. So I would recommend the skill alongside this skill, definitely. 4 points left. This is a toss-up between how you want to kill cruisers. This is where you can really apply this to your own playstyle. You can choose RPF, but I would say that's more for DD killing, but it can be for cruisers, because a lot of cruisers at high tier do have pretty good concealment. I don't think any are actually better than the Khabarovsk. Well, I know that some boats, like the Minotaur and the Ibuki, full upgraded with a concealment build, have got better concealment than the Khabarovsk, which is crazy. But yes, concealment is a consideration if you want to be able to surprise cruisers at a closer distance. It's only 10% down, but for the Khabarovsk, that's nearly a whole kilometer of detectability that you'll be reducing it by. But personally, I'm not entirely sure whether I find this skill particularly amazing for killing cruisers. I would probably say for an anti-cruiser, you want to get your reloads, your torpedo reload down as much as possible, so you can get those torpedoes out as fast as possible. And with 1 point left, I would recommend priority target. If there are 2 or more cruisers and you're feeling outnumbered, you may not notice it because you could be flanked, or if you think you might be in a place where everyone should be shooting at you and no one is, then you know you're safe. This is why this skill is useful. So this is my anti-cruiser Khabarovsk build. Right, moving on from this build, we will be doing an anti-BB build. I would say Khabarovsk is very effective at killing BBs. I'm not going to say killing BBs, but like pushing back BBs with your your error denial, with your quite heavy shell hitting. But yeah, so let's start with preventative maintenance or priority target. Again, this is a toss-up, whichever one you prefer. Personally, I prefer priority target, but for the general consensus, I am recommending preventative maintenance. Then we're moving on to the obvious last stand. Now, if we're attacking BBs, we're going to be wanting to fire as much fiery shells into BBs as possible. This means demolition expert, of course. We're going to be wanting to fire torpedoes, so we're going to be thinking, okay, torpedo armament expertise, absolutely. We're going to be wanting to improve the rate of fire of all of those, so we're picking adrenaline rush and basic firing training. Now, with 5 points left, we do have a little decision to make here. Do you want to be firing inertia fuse per HE at BBs, which means you will be getting more penetration than you'd expect? Obviously, this doesn't work on the really thick armors, so just work out the numbers yourself. Go look at the armor models on the actual game, and you will find out all the numbers that you need to know. This is definitely a consideration, or probably the one I would choose would be AFT. This means you can fire at BBs from 20% extra range. Very, very, very useful. And finally, with the one last point you have left, you have priority target. This is quite similar to an all-out gunboat build. The difference is you're switching over from survivability expert to torpedo armament. This means you can get torpedoed out very quickly, especially if you have 50 or 25% health. You'll be getting your torpedoes out between 20 and 25% quicker, which is very useful for firing a lot of torpedoes at BBs. Great way of doing area denial. I think these are the main build choices I would do for the Khabarovsk, and you can see how different they are. There's even within those builds you can choose more specifically how you want to go about, your own playstyle. But these are the general guides that you can use for the Khabarovsk. So even if you did want to kind of slightly change it up a bit, so for example, if we're going back to a gunboat build, which is probably what I'd recommend, you just all out kind of a versatile gunboat where you're generally attacking all different types of boats. I mean, in the version I chose preventative maintenance. Now, personally, I would choose priority target, and then obviously these ones over here. But if you wanted to change it up a bit, you could go for demolition expert next, and then you could also go for inertia fuse for HE. This is still, buffing your guns as much as you can. And then we'll also go for adrenaline rush. We don't have to pick BFT if we're picking adrenaline rush, which means we have 3 points extra we can use in something else. So if you're going gunboat, you can go for AFT to increase your range. Now, this means you have 2 skills up here rather than the skills down here. Now, if you're going for pure absolute guns, yes, we would pick BFT. But if you didn't want to pick BFT because you felt that adrenaline rush kind of counteracts BFT, because this is a 10% buff and this is an up to 20% buff. Well, it can never actually be 20%, but up to like 19.99 whatever. So yeah, we have 3 points left, and we could go for, well, obviously you would choose basic firing training if you were doing absolute gunboat, but you can easily go for something like expert marksman, so you can get your turrets pointing round to a different area much quicker than otherwise. And then preventative maintenance. This is a build you can go to if this fits your playstyle better. So there's a lot of change you can do. So I would definitely take the time to go through each individual boat and find out what you believe is the best style of play that you want to do in your Khabarovsk, and then you can tailor it to how you play yourself. Tell me what you think of these builds. I will leave all the links in the description below, and I'll speak to you guys later.